to you. I can wait.
Sir, how you doing?
All right.
Really good.
I like your mom.
I think you could.
Yeah, I just think you got that big client. Who's our guest? Which channel?
What channel are you with?
Miss Hogan. The reason why I can't get on that one.
Because you're on the Mr. 182 is the guest. So where's your little signal?
So do that.
Yes, and that's the password.
Thank you.
I will be leaving before that because I've got my work people in town. And it's their first night of
Well, it's set. Everyone's in suits are saying they're hot, so it's set to 72 right now. But it
Really important.
it is. See, Trustee Bornstein's warm. I have it at 72. Hopefully that's okay. There's no way to please everybody.
You're gonna have to let them your jacket.
Bring it to 78.
You'll have to arm wrestle Trustee Koopman for that.
I have seniority over
Well, the thermostat is right there on the wall.
But then it'll eventually connect and wind around to South
Goodness gracious. This is gonna be a night I can feel it.
the ice cold air.
I'm not sure what I feel right now. I planned for a long night. Ryan Macadamia, that's what he was offense.
The mayor signed everything.
It's supposed to be 20 minutes. Does anybody want
Do you provide sufficient guidance? Sure.
Well, ask him if we're going to hold him to 20 minutes, because that's what's supposed to be. You guys good? Presentations to 20 minutes, right? That's what we're supposed to be.
I don't.
That's
see
what I was
a
told.
letter.
We presented for Village 7th. I think 20 minutes was our max. It feels so good. It's so funny you mention that though, because one of my first jobs when I was 16 was working at a liquor store, After 2 years, I didn't need a jacket anymore. Now I don't mind being cold.
I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, May 6, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Here.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Here.
Trustee Koopman,
Here.
Trustee Romanello,
Here.
Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Before us, we have a consent agenda and an agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda? I have a few. I would like to remove item 6B or 6C. Mr. Lytle will be available for questions during items 8A, B, and C. And I would also like to table items 8D through 8M.
8D.
8D through 8M.
As in Nancy?
As in Mary?
Or?
No,
yeah.
as in Mike.
Oh, so we're leaving Ann. We're leaving Ann. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Did you say N or M?
M as in Mike.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Do we have any,
I'm assuming that D through M are only the revisions that you guys had come up with, and it's not a priority?
they are not time
Sensitive.
sensitive.
Okay. I second.
Um,
Oh, sorry.
let's go with,
More discussion.
does everyone agree with those changes?
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment also, if you're
Okay.
first. I'd like to, where is, on 6A, I would like to take a minute to talk about that before the presentation. So maybe move it,
So would you like to make comments before presentation?
yes.
Is that okay with the board?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Do we have any other modifications to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve as amended. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Koopman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
First item on the agenda, oath of office. Mr. Foreman, will you meet me on the floor? Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Michael,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
the Constitution and statutes
the Constitution and statutes
of the state of Colorado,
of the state of Colorado,
and ordinances
and the ordinances
of the town of Monument.
of the town of Monument.
And I will faithfully perform
I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of town manager
of town manager
for the town of Monument,
for the town of Monument,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Introduction of new employee. Mr. Foreman? Yep. Or Mr. Owens?
Mr. Winger, please join me up front. Board, as you noticed, we have a new setup tonight. We have staff all lined up over here. If they're making presentations or their director, they're gonna be over here. The rest of the staff will be in the back like they were before. One of our newest staff members, who just started this week, or last week actually, is Bill Winger. He comes from the town of Winter Park, 10 years with the town of Winter Park. He's also a CPA. He will be our director of finance now. And so, we just wanted to let you know that Mr. Wingert started. He's working on our audit with our auditors. He's gonna be working on our budget and everything else that we have going on here in the town monument. So I wanted everybody to welcome Mr. Bill.
I'll move it here and learn everything I can.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Discussion item A, removal of officers, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some background. At the March 18th board meeting, Trustee Clark asked me to look into a specific topic, and that topic was related to Resolution 12-218, the Code of Conduct. And that Code of Conduct referenced the removal of officers. And the question presented to me was, is such a power available and legal, and if so, how may it be employed? And that is the purpose of the memo you have before you, is to explain that yes, it's a statutory power, it exists under state statute, and as a statutory town, the town may employ that power. And then the question of how it is employed is a little bit tougher. There's not a lot of meat in the statute regarding how to employ the power, but through a review of the case law as indicated in the memo, it's pretty clear that the power is reserved for more serious crimes. And I think the language that I would like to direct the board's attention to is on page 2 of the memo. It's from the case Board of Trustees, Town of Gillette v. Keith, and it's the underlined section. Except for official misconduct, such misconduct as affects the performance of his duties as an officer, and for offenses against the corporation of a character directly affecting its rights and interests, which basically means something along the lines of official misconduct, as I would read it. And so the power exists. It exists to remove the board may remove a trustee for official misconduct, and the process that is established by the case law is something that is akin to a trial, and there's not much more than that. And that's why I'd like to let the board know that this is more of a beginning of a conversation than anything else, and the board has the authority under the statute to put in place procedures that affect that if the board sees it fit.
Any questions for Mr. Rivera?
I'm wondering if it would be possible for us to go through that resolution and possibly insert some language to make that clear, like right before that paragraph, by a majority vote of all members of the Board of Trustees, the mayor, the clerk, the treasurer, and any member of the board or any other officer of the town may be removed from office. If we could put in a line that says, should any trustee or any other officer be found guilty by a court of law for high crimes in front of that. I was wondering if we could discuss that as a board to see if we could revise the resolution to accommodate that language just as a start, because I know that a lot of other things would have to be fleshed out too. So I would like the board to consider just adding those few words. Should any trustee or any other officer be found guilty by a court of law for high crimes be added to the resolution. What your thoughts would be on that?
Comments from the board?
So you're suggesting that only crimes would be justifiable?
For in the Board of Ethics resolution, as Mr. Rivera just stated, it would have to be high crimes like felonies or murder or misdemeanor or embezzlement versus for any and everything as it's stated in the actual ethics resolution. In the resolution as it stands now, you know, if I came in here with pink shoes and you guys didn't like it, you could have me removed from the board. But here, I like pink shoes though, I do like them. But this would be further clarifying upon when we would exercise the removal portion of that ethics resolution.
Okay.
I appreciate the research done on this. I think it highlights that what we currently have lacks a critical piece, and that's the process in which we may choose to follow what's permitted under statute. I think that's imperative. I think we need to have something. I don't know if that's going to be determined today, but I think we need to urgently revise what we have, because I think what we currently have leaves the door open for impropriety, absolutely, as in the pink shoe scenario. Like, if there be some legal complications if something like that occurred. But I think we should be proactive in revising this and fleshing it out a little bit more.
I don't think the door's wide open, but it says except for official misconduct. I wouldn't say pink shoes to your example would be official misconduct.
But she's asking to add official misconduct.
Yeah, it doesn't say official misconduct. That's the example given in the case law. And I think that's the highlight is that it doesn't clarify.
Okay.
Do you see an issue with that in that, Mr. Rivera?
I think the question as it was presented to me was, I see this power in the resolution, and I want to know if it's valid power, and if so, how it operates. And the answer is yes, it's a valid power, and how it operates is that something close to or analogous to a trial, the Board of Trustees could remove a fellow board member if the conduct at issue was, and I'd like to refer back to the underlying language. The misconduct affects the performance of his duties as an officer and for offenses against the corporation of a character directly affecting its rights and interests. And so I'm not sure that I would respectfully disagree with the pink shoes example. I don't think that we're there. I think that the case law would stop that process and you'd be forced to answer the question, well, is this serious enough? At the same time, I think that it's reasonable to maybe, it's within the board's power to flesh out what is serious enough. So your options are or you can wait till this is necessary. I mean, this is something that I'm not sure, there's a lot of options. Your option is to direct me, obviously, to rewrite this and with your help and present that at a future meeting. Rely on the case law as the backstop, which I think is probably appropriate, or table this for a future meeting. And I think either of those options would be fine with and appropriate.
What do you think of his comments on that?
I think giving Mr. Rivera time to come up with the appropriate language and insert it, rewrite it, revise it, and bring it forward to the board would be fantastic.
Is the board in agreements with that?
Yes.
Would the board want this to be in the form of an ordinance that shows up in the code, or what's the direction? Presently, the reference is in a resolution that the board refers to as the Code of Conduct, I believe, or what do we call it? Yeah, Code of Conduct.
Resolution.
Okay.
Resolution.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. I understand my direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion item B, Canarski Art Park, Ms. Vandenhoek.
Good evening, trustees. This is just a follow-up to your request on April 1st, Dr. Sky Hall's presentation from Tri-Lakes Views. He asked for a park to be named after Miss Canarski, Betty Canarski, who at one time was a town monument mayor. And so we did some research into looking at the art park that's at the Lewis Palmer School District admin building. And that's under control of the Lewis Palmer School District. And in that research, we learned that the school board would need to decide if that could be named in honor of Miss Canarski. So with that information, we're just looking for your direction as to how you would like us to proceed with this item.
Do you think the school board would be in favor of that? And we're just talking superficial naming, not any sort of property transfer. Do they have that?
Correct. It would not be a property transfer.
Do they?
And I don't have an idea of what the school board would think about that. We haven't asked the school board, we just asked school staff what the process would be.
Do they have any currently for that art park that they have, that we know of?
No, informally, we refer to it as a sculpture park or the art park, just as a reference point, but it doesn't currently have a name.
Mr. Mayor, would it not make sense, because I think we're putting the cart before the horse, to maybe have somebody reach out to the school board and get a read on their feelings? And then at that time, when we know what direction, then if we have to go and alternate.
I agree, but I think since the board unanimously agreed with moving forward with this, if you want one of us to assist in discussing with the school board, if you think it would help.
Well, I think that Tri-Lakes Views would probably be the appropriate entity to approach the school board with a letter of support perhaps from the Board of Trustees that might help in that decision, since it is sort of a community effort to make that art park there. But I do feel like that organization might be one of the better organizations to approach the school board.
Okay. I would suggest that our direction for this would be to draft a letter of support and move forward with approaching the school board.
I'd like to see our town manager involved, because again, building that rapport, I know we have a good rapport with the district, but I can't speak if you do or not, but this is a
We're
good.
going to their board meeting this week. Is that, are we good? What is that we're going to this
That's
week?
the Lewis Palmer Business and Education Advisory
Right.
Committee that we're.
Is this something we could talk about at that meeting?
We could talk with the superintendent if she's in attendance at that
Yep.
meeting.
Definitely. So I think a support letter from the board would be good to do, and then we'll talk to their superintendent and their staff at that meeting. And that's this week. Is that Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday at 7:30, we'll be there.
Now, what I heard you say is it may be more well-received coming from the art group. So a letter of support, and then telling the art group, and address it, go do it, and we're here to support you.
Yep.
You think that's better received? I mean, I hear two different things. So if you're looking for
Sorry.
clarification, I heard two different things.
What I was saying was go ahead with the art group.
Gotcha.
The art group moving forward with the letter of support from us.
Right. And then us meeting with them on Wednesday. I think all three of those things need to happen.
And Mr. Foreman and I are involved with the art group as well with
Right.
Tri-Lakes Views, so we can certainly help facilitate that as well.
Definitely.
Do you feel you have your direction?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
And the board's in agreement, correct? Thank you, Ms. Vanderpool.
You're up next.
Item 6, presentation for bench replacement. Trustee Clark would like to make a few comments prior to this presentation.
Yes, I was looking at the pictures of the bench and actually received several emails and texts from citizens who think they're beautiful, but wondered about the safety and the practicality of not having a flat surface for an elderly person to sit on, or children falling in between the, I don't know what you call those things.
The slats.
Slats, thank you. The slats, they are very beautiful, but I'm just wondering about the safety and the practicality.
We had our public works department go out there and look at them, and they meet our SRSA regulations for benches.
Did you sit on one?
Yes, I have.
How was it?
It felt fine. It was comfortable. Mm-hmm. Metal one looks like it's the most,
That's it.
that one. So you sat on the red one or the metal one? The metal one. Okay. Yeah, the metal
The
one.
metal one's the replacement,
Yep.
the red one's not replacing.
And just for a point here, these are actually less expensive than the ones we were ordering in the past.
And I think that's wonderful, the frugality, but I was more concerned with the people's interpretation.
And
safety.
so were we. We were very concerned about that, so we sent public works staff out there and then made sure that they met our SRSA regulations, requirements for insurance.
So Mr. Foreman, just a comment or a question. From my understanding, we'll be doing the first batch over here and Old Downtown, and then I don't want to speak, especially if anybody's here from our colleagues on the other side, but they're going to take a commitment for the second batch for the Jackson Creek area.
Exactly. We had a discussion with Jim McGrady, and he took a look at these and basically loves them and thinks they're a great asset for the other side. Over in Jackson Creek area, he's got a couple of parks areas that he'd love to put 4 or 5, and I think he's going to present that to his board.
And again, I think they're beautiful too, but I'm just concerned about the safety and the practicality.
As are we.
To clarify, location, this may be in your presentation.
Right.
These aren't going in place of normal park benches in like the parks where the kids go and play, or they are?
They are. There'll be, I think we're putting 4 or 5 in the cemeteries, and then we're going to put 4 or 5 in the parks.
Interesting.
Are we good to move on?
And we did address some of the things that were a concern of ours, was there were some parts of the metal that stuck up too high, and we thought that those would not work in the parks, so we're not putting those in the parks.
Okay.
Yeah, those are some of our concerns.
I think, you know, to be fair too, and there's a concern always with anything and everything, but I think parents, as we're all parents, have a responsibility to their children, and, you know, you can't make everything fail-safe, but,
Well, I was concerned too for, you know, future lawsuit risk. But if everyone's fine with it, then, okay, I'll report that back.
And I believe that came up before with the merry-go-round at the park.
you know, again, it's taking ownership, it's just,
What happened with the merry-go-round? I
Well,
wasn't.
it was an issue at one time that people felt it was a safety hazard and they wanted it removed, but it's been there
But
since
then-
the dawn of time.
The way I understood it is more people argued that it needed to stay because they liked it.
Correct.
And Tom, am I correct that CIRSA comes out and does an insurance inspection on our equipment annually?
They do a physical inspection once a year, they do an administrative paperwork where they're looking for your playground inspections. Our guys go out and, for every park where our playgrounds are, and I believe it's once a month, they do a thorough inspection of every piece of equipment that's under our insurance program.
Right.
So you will not touch our merry-go-round.
And to clarify further location, yeah, I understand we're not swapping out the newer ones that we've already invested in. This isn't across the board.
Things like that.
Memorial benches.
No.
Ones that are in remembrance of individuals,
No, we-
those aren't going to be touched as well.
No, we had that discussion. The only way we would do that is if we had a discussion with the families and they requested that.
Okay.
Yep.
Just a question on benches like this, can they be resurfaced, refinished, and we can still utilize them?
Do we have,
Based on the cost that we shared, because I'm having a hard time grasping the cost of these to begin with, but
Right.
that's a topic for another evening.
You can restore these, but these are the wooden ones, and when you talk to CIRSA about it, CIRSA's always been wanting you to remove anything that has wood in it out of our parks, because they have a lot of loss claims through the various municipalities that they insure. So whenever we come across something that needs to be replaced, we're almost always gonna be forced to replace it with something either,
Track
similar
stacking.
to the decking type material or a metal.
So,
Right.
Tom, dumb question, but what type of claim would they have on a wooden bench?
You'd be surprised, people, there's splinters, people sometimes fall, and it just depends on what the case is. We haven't had any claims like that, but they tell us that they're out there, so they don't allow you to replace something like that with another wooden.
Okay, thank you.
Can we move forward with the presentation?
Yep.
Thank you. This will actually be pretty short. We talked quite a bit about them, but I just wanted to show you some pictures of old benches. We have benches like this in Dirty Woman Park, in Limbaugh Park, and also in the cemetery as well. We have been, there's another one. There's another bench that we have at Limbaugh Park. It kind of goes around the tree, and we also have one of those at Dirty Woman Creek Park as well. That is the Victor Stanley benches that we had been using, and those will stay. But for cost's sake and for adding to the unique qualities of our town, these will be the new benches.
now the part that I was talking about, those high stakes up there at the top, those won't go in the parks. So if it has something like that, our concern, I think of our staff, was that kids would play on that and they would bend it over and possibly break it off and have a cutting hazard there, so those won't go in the parks. We're gonna
This
have
was just-
smaller.
Where will they go?
Those are gonna go in the cemeteries.
Well, this is just one
Right.
that's like this. This was kind of the prototype. So
Right.
she has not yet made the rest of them. So we've talked with her about the design and to make sure that they're safe and also durable in our community as well. So, unless you have any other questions, everything else we've already discussed about the benches.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you for the pictures.
Sure.
Thank you. Moving on to presentation item B, Tri-Lakes Cares. Ms. Chapman.
trustees, staff, and guests. We appreciate you taking the time to hear from us. We are here to kind of give an annual update about Tri-Lakes Cares and what we're providing to the community, and some facts and statistics. I wanted to start with what we call a mission moment, which is where we have a recipient of our services tell you a little bit about their experiences with the services and products that we offer, so you can hear from someone other than myself. I could talk about Tri-Lakes Cares all day long, but so with me today I have Layla Barrera, and she's going to share with you just a quick moment or two about her experiences with Tri-Lakes Cares, and also take any questions from you.
Hello, I'm short. Sorry. I have to say that Tri-Lakes Care is a very important that they stay in Monument, because without it, there's so many people, individuals in Monument that really need, that we need their help. Because if I didn't have, well, no, 15, 20 years, when I first got here to Colorado, it was in 1985 from Kentucky, and I drove a school bus for a very long time. But because a lot of people in the community or in the fixed income, it's hard for us to meet our needs. And Tri-Lakes Care does that. And I wanted to say how thankful and appreciative I am that they're there. Because a lot of us probably wouldn't make it, and we would not know what to do without them. And I'm very appreciative that they're there, because they have helped me from point A to point B everywhere. And I just want to say how thankful I am that they're here. And that's what well, they paid my rent one time so that I could go by a storm door because it was falling off. They have helped me fix my deck because it was falling. And they have food, because by the end of the month, I have about $5 left. And so I have to go there. I don't like to, but I have to. And I'm talking for probably all the people that go there. They are really appreciative, because a lot of the people there, they work there, I don't know if they work there, you work there, right? The other ones are volunteers. They could be watching TV, but they're there to help us. And that is a good thing, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do any of you have questions for Layla before we continue on?
Continue.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of our organization. Again, many of you are familiar with it, but a little refresher. So our mission statement focuses on services in 3 different areas: emergency relief, and self-sufficiency. So here are some stats on our local region, gathered from a variety of sources in the gray, and then off to the side in the blue are some stats for the USA. So it puts it in a little bit of a perspective. Our local service territory is northern El Paso County. So we go from county line down to Interquest area, up against the mountains, and then out east of following District 38 boundaries. So kind of Meridian area is where we finish on the east side. The federal poverty line is an indication from the government that puts that together, and every year that gets adjusted. And so what I have there on that table is the example of the federal poverty line. And if you can just try to imagine, based on your household size, living with that income level and surviving anywhere in the United States, it's pretty darn difficult. And so we always used 185% of our poverty line in years past, and we realized we were getting clientele off of needing services assistance, and then they'd end up coming back not too long after. And so we were not being reflective of our local community, and we know that our local community area median income is higher on the north end than it might be down in the Springs. So we made a change about 2 years ago to be more reflective of our community, and we took the 5 zip codes we serve, took their AMI, averaged them, and then went half. And so this next slide shows the new income eligibility guidelines. So you can see, based on the household size, the income eligibility that we serve. So if you live within our service territory and you make that amount of income per your household or less, you are eligible for services. Now, while some folks may think that those numbers are high, I can assure you that the higher and closer you get to those numbers, the less people we see. There are people that are living in this community for a family of 4 that are making $63,000, and their teenagers are eating them out of house and home. They need uniforms, they need to participate in a bunch of school activities. By the time you add cars in that they're starting to drive, because we have no public transportation here, it becomes very costly to live on the north end of the community. And so we feel that these numbers are reflective of our community that we serve. And so if they live in our geographical boundary and they make that income guideline, then they are eligible for our full bank of services. Our secondary clients are those who live either outside of our service territory or are outside of this income guidelines. And they are eligible for a smaller amount of services. There's some that are restricted based on income. There's some that are restricted based on if we get county funding or not, and so forth. So there are 2 types of clients that we serve, those that fit into generational poverty or situational poverty. The case managers that work with our individual clients work with them on a very different basis depending on the situation that they're coming from. There are some folks who have been involved or lived in middle class for all their life and all of a sudden are thrusted into needing social services and don't even know the first thing about how to access them. And then there are folks who have generational poverty who their families have just grown up utilizing the system and needing services from organizations like Tri-Lakes Cares. And so they're very well versed in the human service organizations and they know a little bit more of the system. So we have to work a little differently with the 2 different clients that we serve. Our clients often, sometimes they will struggle with understanding the difference between each of the classes. So we have a self-sufficiency class called Getting Ahead, where it's a 12 to 15 week long program where our clients work with a facilitator and learn and investigate our community, themselves, their own situation, the differences between the 3 classes, and how to develop a path out of poverty for them and their family. And so understanding these 3 different classes is a key part into making that successful. It's also a key part for our staff in making sure that they understand. Sometimes they talk a different language than the clients we serve. And so we have to make sure that we're all playing on the same field and that we all can understand each other. Another example is money. So sometimes money can be looked at in 3 different ways based on the class that you're coming into. And you can see there that sometimes in poverty, money is to be spent versus middle class to be managed versus wealth to be conserved and invested. So those are the 3 different languages, again, where you can look at the same thing, and depending on where your situation is, you look at the same thing very differently. Another example is food. Obviously, we are very well known for having our food pantry, and same thing, sometimes people coming from different backgrounds and different situations can look at the same thing differently. Even clothing is a good example. So often we're kind of blinded with our blinders on to looking at it in the class that we live in or that we grew up from. And so this is a great opportunity for folks to understand that there's more than one way to look at different things. We've had clients that come to us before and they have all these bills that need to be paid and they struggle to make ends meet. We ask them, well, how do you decide what bill to pay? And sometimes they say, whatever balloon floats down first. And it's kind of an eye-opening experience, and I still occasionally get them too, and I've been with Tri-Lakes Cares for 9 years now, of sometimes clients view things or put a different perspective on things that I am not aware of. And so I'm always open to being able to learn more of how they make their decisions and why they choose to do something that maybe I wouldn't have chosen to do the same thing. Program areas that we offer, again, are 3 different areas that are part of our mission statement: emergency relief and self-sufficiency. But the programs listed there are some examples of the products and services that we offer to the community members who find themselves in need. Of course, we always have a category called Other. Sometimes clients come to us with very unique situations and needs, and we have to be very creative with how to solve them. So we work with a lot of different community partners and other nonprofits in the community to help meet those needs. Medical program is definitely something that makes us stand out, that not a lot of other organizations that are similar to Tri-Lakes Cares are able to offer. through our great collaboration with Penrose St. Francis, we have a nurse on our team who is paid for by Penrose but housed in our facility. So she fits in and looks like just another staff member of ours, but she's not on our payroll, which is great. And then we have the ability to access their volunteer doctor, Dr. Gibbs, who has been with Tri-Lakes Cares longer than I have. I'm not even sure how long he's been there, but he comes and sees folks who are either or underinsured. So uninsured is obviously those who don't have insurance. Underinsured are those who do have insurance, but it's too expensive to use it. So sometimes the copays are too high or the deductibles too high. And so we have folks that have the insurance and can't even afford to tap into that benefit. So people can come see our doctor for free. Then the nurse can offer over-the-counter medications and everything from a first aid kit and diabetic testing strips and cough syrup and allergy medicine. And we don't want parents to have to make a decision about whether to provide their children with children's ibuprofen or putting food on the table at night. And so we have a breadth of products available in the medical clinic for her to disperse out into the community. So anybody is able to see the nurse because that program is part of Penrose St. Francis and just housed in our building. That's often a misconception. So anybody can go and call our nurse and schedule an appointment to see the doctor. Anybody can do that. They don't have the income or geographical restrictions that Tri-Lakes Cares does. And those income and geographical restrictions that Tri-Lakes Cares has is really put in line to assure our funders and donors that we're not duplicating services with other agencies that are down in Springs. And also because our some of the grants that we receive have those restrictions on them. The Getting Ahead, as I mentioned before, our self-sufficiency program, several of you have been able to attend some of our graduations in the past. We look like we'll be having a graduation sometime in June. The date is still yet to be determined, but you will all be receiving an invitation from me to come join that. We graduate anywhere between 6 and 12 people at a time, depending on how many are in the class. They have their storyboards there where they talk about their past, present, and future. And a lot of the time when we talked about them living in the tyranny of the moment, they don't see that future piece. And so there's no planning. Like we talked about in wealth, they invest and they plan for the future. And sometimes we don't see that in some of the clients we serve. So in the Getting Ahead program, it allows us to help prepare them for that planning process and what does that look like in the future. We all know that we have to have a rainy day fund to be able to plan for an unexpected expense that we might have. Some of us have the fortunate of being able to do that easily, and some not so easily. So having to work with the clientele to actually know that they have a future and plan for that future helps them develop some of those habits that we want to instill with them that come from middle class. Of course, we have plenty of food programs. That's kind of what we're known for. I'll give you a quick question. What's the difference between a food pantry and a food bank? Anybody know? You want to take a guess? So a food bank, for our food bank is Care and Share. They supply the agencies. A food pantry, like Tri-Lakes Cares, serves the people that are utilizing and eating the food. So we are a food pantry. We get a lot of food from Care and Share and a lot of other community partners in town. We pick up from King Supers and Safeway and Natural Grocers and Starbucks, and Food Maven comes and delivers, many others. And they help us supply our refrigerators in our produce section and our dry goods on our pantry shelf. 4 main reasons that people actually leave poverty. I'm sure you've heard statistics about sometimes it takes so many tries for someone to leave a domestic violence situation, or so many tries for somebody to actually quit smoking and be successful. Same thing with leaving poverty. It's not first try that you're always successful. Occasionally it happens, but sometimes we have folks that come back and need a little extra support. It's definitely a struggle for folks to be leaving a poverty situation. Sometimes that means leaving their family, and that's very hard if they don't have another support system. So we can understand on some level why they might not want to do that if they don't have support. We all need support some way. These are several of our different partnerships that we have with community members and nonprofits. They definitely help make us stronger, provide us access to more products and services that we can then bring into the community. So outputs for fiscal 18, these are some examples of the numbers that we were able to accomplish last year. Pictures on the bottom left of some of our volunteers pushing out a vehicle out of our parking lot that stopped working. Top left is a volunteer stocking our shelves, and on the right is a lady who lives here, right here in Monument, Susie, who does a lot of little appearances for us and gave us a quote there to share with you guys as well. So that's some of the impact that we were able to make, that we're very proud of what we were able to do this last fiscal year. Outputs are different than outcomes. So outputs are how many butts in the seat, and outcomes are, well, what did that really mean? And so this is an example of some of what does it really mean? How much did we really, what did we really contribute to the community, or what were we able to do with the dollar? And it's a different way of looking at how successful an organization is. Just because you have two organizations and they both have the Getting Ahead program running and they both graduate 12 people, great. Which one's more effective? Which one is moving those clients on and moving them out of poverty and into being a life of self-sufficiency? That's the question you want to ask, not how many people graduated, or how many pounds did you give out, or how many mouths did you feed, but what was the result of that? And that's why outcomes are so important. The volunteers make it happen. As Lila mentioned, our staff are outnumbered on a day that we're open by about 5 to 1, and overall through the course of the year they're outnumbered by about 20 to 1. They run our front desk, they pick up the food at the different establishments, they pack the food, they hand it out, they pack school supplies, they help organize the gifts that are given out during the holiday time, and so much more. And so we truly determine whether or not we open our doors on a Monday holiday as to whether or not we have enough volunteers to run. That's how we determine. Because we know that the community members always need to eat, and we should always be there for them. But we determine when we can open based on how many volunteers we have. So that's a little bit of the conclusion of my presentation. I would like to invite up Joe and Dave, if you don't mind joining me up here. Joe and Dave are president and vice president of our board of directors. I've asked them to come along today as well to just share a minute or two from them, and also for you guys to ask any questions, whether it be a staff-related question or a board member question that they might be able to answer.
Good evening, Mayor Wilson. How are you?
Good.
Trustees, thanks for giving us a few minutes to present for Taste of or for Tri-Lakes Cares. Haley's our executive director. We have a staff of 11 full and part-time employees that do a wonderful job servicing the clients in our local community. But we do have over 200 volunteers. And when you look at all the things, whether they're outcomes or outputs, think about this and think about what the nonprofit world is built on, and that is a nonprofit enabling factor. And what that is if you give us $1, we might be able to turn it into $3 or $5 or $7. And that's the power of Tri-Lakes Cares in our community. We'll take donations, we'll take dollar donations, and we'll turn it into something greater for the community and those community members in need. So thank you for letting us come up here, take a little time. And by the way, Dave's our vice president, but Madeline is also a board member. Our board is made up of local community members, and we also have a diversity in the board where we even have previous clients that come on and are board members. So it's not just a group of people thinking about what poverty is in our local community. It's people that have actually lived in poverty in our local community that is trying to make an impact and keep that diversity, that economic diversity that makes us so rich as a community. And we want to thank you for your support and look for your future support. And anytime you want to come over to Tri-Lakes Cares and take a tour, we'd love to have you over. So thank you.
Questions from the board? Oh, go ahead.
So we do have one more thing just coming up tomorrow evening. No, Wednesday. In the snowstorm, our Taste of Tri-Lakes Cares. It's a fun event. We've got, any of you have been before, we do have 12 local chefs. They'll take baskets that's indicative of what we're going to get in the pantry, and they get 5 items each, and then create a dish out of those 5 items. And you get to go walk around and sample the dishes from your local chefs, the creative way they do it. Kind of like Chopped if you're a foodie on that. Interspersed with that, their educational booths. It may be how many tongue depressors are there in the jar. And as you're going to perform, we're briefing you on the medical stuff we provide. So it's a great opportunity to meet your local chefs, good group of folks, and to learn more about Tri-Lakes Cares. A lot of people, especially if you're on the other side of the highway, you don't always see what we see on a daily basis.
I just want to add my thanks to everyone in the room for the support, because without the support of the community, we wouldn't be able to help the community the way we help it. So thank you all for the support on that. And we do have flyers for the taste if anyone's interested. We're still selling tickets on the website.
How much are the tickets?
Tickets are $30. And it's out at the Flying Horse Ranch out on County Line.
If you haven't been there,
On Wednesday?
yes,
Wednesday at
evening.
5:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Yes.
It's a great experience, a great way to just mix with the community, mix with the restaurants, the chefs, and learn about Trustee Scares.
Any questions that we can answer?
Questions from the board?
I did have one little one. So you were saying that you all focus on the monument population, but you are open to people outside of the monument population?
Yeah, so we service Monument zip code, Palmer Lake, Glen Eagle area, Northgate area. So we go from county line all the way down to Interquest, so the very northern part of the Springs.
And that does include Palmer Lake?
Correct. Oh, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Tri-Lakes, so we gotta get the Palmer Lake in there, although now we have a fourth one, I can
Is that worth one?
But, yes, so northern El Paso County. We have folks who live just over the border county line in Larkspur who are closer to us than they are to agencies in Castle Rock. So they might come to us to be able to take advantage of the Help Yourself market that we have where they can get food, but they might not be eligible for housing assistance because some of the money we get for housing might be county specific. And since they don't reside in El Paso County, we can't use that funding to support them in that capacity. So for the most part, if you live within our service territory of northern El Paso County and meet our income guidelines, you're pretty much eligible for everything.
Thank
Great.
you.
I'm gonna provide each of you with a little goodie bag with some more information, one for the record, and there's also the information on the Taste of Tri-Lakes Cares in here as well. We hope that you will join us on Wednesday evening, and of course, anybody in the community is welcome to join us as well. So thank you for allowing us, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
I know that some of us have been to the Getting Ahead graduations and some of the tours. If you haven't, it's a wonderful thing to participate in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next item on the agenda, executive session. We'll be having an executive session to discuss two items, the town's water portfolio and litigation between the town and Forest Lakes. Both matters will be discussed under the following sections, section 24-6-402, part 4B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the town's water attorney, Bob Crossa, on a specific legal question, the town's water portfolio, and section 24-6-402, 4B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice on a specific legal question and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and instructing negotiators regarding the town's response to Forest Lake's lawsuit against the town. Do we have a motion to move into executive session?
Motion to move into executive session.
I have a motion, do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. We will take a 5-minute break and meet in the police department conference room.
Mayor, point of order, could you also further move to reconvene in open session and follow?
Sorry. After the executive session, we will return to open meeting at the close of executive session for the purpose of taking any formal action deemed necessary.
Thank you.
So y'all can stay here. We're not, y'all can stay here, we're moving upstairs.
I'm good, I'm good. I'm good. I got
That's still on there.
coffee cures everything.
But these are the actual ordinances, right? What they were referencing was an old resolution where they approved a code of conduct. And I am not authorized to speak on behalf of the board, so don't quote me. Yeah, it was passed last year, the one that they're referencing. And that's in the board memo and the board packet that he put Rivera wrote. So, I can put that up. Okay.
That's about specific.
Yeah. But if you pull up the board packet, let me make sure. I'll give you a number. I just need to, yeah, because it was in the board memo that the attorney wrote that's included in the packet. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. Yeah. Oh, no. No, no, no. No. Let's see. Okay, well, it's not in there, so let me just look up the resolution. I believe that they are referencing. Just ordinances, because resolutions are more temporary in nature. They're not codified into town code. Let's see, where is it? So it's resolution 12, 2018 is what they were referencing. Making modifications to that particular. Yeah, let me just email it to you, that resolution. I mean, you probably wouldn't hurt to take a look at it, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm emailing you a signed copy. And you'll see it just come with nothing, like, it's just an attachment. Very That I'm a little unclear of. I think both statements were made. Yeah, so however he presents it, I guess we'll figure it out. Well, he might draft one that revises and or replaces the old one. I don't know. It'll depend on how he drafts it. Yeah. 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 Sure.
You know, in our community, that happens a lot, so. We lose a lot of people because they. So I have no issues out of the person that I dealt with. Yeah. No, no.
Well, whatever is handed out to the board, I just need to retain a copy for the record. Yeah, so if you want to just hand them out during public comment, just let me know. Absolutely. Whatever you would prefer, yes. The only thing we do require is that if you're going to talk during public comment, there's a little sign-in sheet at the podium. And that's just, well, our code requires it, but so that I can get your name down accurately for the minutes too. Okay, thank you. And I can pass it out for you if you prefer, but, okay. Okay. Oh, great. Good. Wonderful. Well, great. Yeah. Fabulous. I'm Laura. Nice to meet you. I'm going to go get my card for you, so you'll have my contact in case you want to distribute something in the future to the board.
Oh, I'm sure she will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to but they don't generate a lot of Well, we do have like those ordinances, we tabled quite a few, thank goodness. We do have 4 ordinances. Well, I hope so.
Actually, this is the ordinance too, so I think, I don't think it's. Have you been up there? Oh, I think it's positive. but make it more of a nice. Experience by giving you some.
No, just when you're done taking.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I was going on over the table and everything, so I'll try to. Thanks.
And also,
Yeah, it's ready to go to Trinidad. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Have a good night.
also.
So I asked Dad.
No, well, they're two separate issues, so they're gonna gain customers. So it's one thing to get a special from the tap fee, you still need that ongoing. From the road.
What comes out is.
Okay, you're here.
You actually might have There used to be 400. Right now, those are cheap.
Very shallow flat. Very dry.
Yep. They scratched not those ones that you're pointing at, but if you turn the agenda over, on the second page they scratched from D to M. Yeah.
So these are still.
Well, they tabled them.
These are still on for tonight.
Yes.
But the presentation
Nope, nope, they took it off and said they would address it during these first three agenda items. Sure.
So I just read in the paper, I guess, the attorney just told me that it's option. So I don't know, I'm gonna do it right now, that we're not gonna throw an injunction out there. The issue is, we have one issue with our property.
They're applying for the occupancy instead of an A2.
So does that mean, and I'm trying to figure out from the emails, does that mean that they can't change anything interior?
Just the occupants.
And that's it, that's the only
But
determination.
they can't have, that western door.
Yes.
Because that's what the.
Because of the cost.
Huh?
Because of the cost.
No, the occupancy is required to have that door. And the door is on an alley. And so reasonable thing was saying that, you know, you can't have a door opening onto public alley.
Well, because I know he wanted to layer the east side, which is where the front desk office area was for the auto place. And every joke was, no, they have a great view of college inn. And so.
It's the southwest corner now, you know, with the L-shaped part, which I thought was the office, but.
Southwest, okay.
And the other thing.
So they're still on the west side, because I think the tasting room should be on the west side.
Well, the other thing was, you couldn't walk from the public area through the warehouse to get your shoes. So he said, last week, Thursday, that his architect was finishing up the occupancy type plans.
Okay.
And so the town's resort buildings, they had life this and scratching that. And walking through.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, you know, they were, they wanted to get ready in December.
Larry, sorry to interrupt. I'm curious if you'd be able to verify, like, the tap fees with the new development, Willow Springs.
This is how they build, because the tap fees are so low every year.
Is that like guaranteed? Is that because the water's becoming more precious, is more open?
No, it's because they haven't raised tap fees for, what, 30 years, 20 years. Yeah, they didn't raise them, I guess before that, though, since I did too.
Right, I told him 7 to 10 million, but I wasn't sure.
And that's based on the numbers that developer that kind of works out.
I'd say it's 23,000, estimated 20,000 times 400. That's a rough estimate. That will get you close. 800,000.
I know, that's what I said.
20,000 times 400.
Seriously.
It comes up. I got it.
Times 400. Yeah, 8 million. See, 7 to 10 million. That's ridiculous. An elementary kid probably just couldn't count at 0 and got that.
So, so you said it kind of depends on what's built, so if it's built 5 years from now, that figure would probably go up.
The tap fee increase now is done after 5 years. They may reconsider that. So they just, I think they knew what they wanted it to be, but they decided to do it incrementally to them. So that everybody else, a real high change right off, but it was like $1,000.
The tap fees?
Yeah, when they passed that.
When was that?
We'll say 4 years ago, 3 years ago? Yeah.
So the tap fees, they were about 9,000 for all of them.
what it's gonna cost to keep the system and people supply over long term, what it's gonna cost to get that done in terms of facilities.
What would that, so that money generated through those tap fees would go to the town's general fund?
No, it would go into a special water fund where they have to be spent water projects. It's an enterprise fund as opposed to the general fund.
To the water enterprise fund?
Yeah, which restricts you to pay these water projects.
You had mentioned that the infusion of that money for town employment. Is there anything specifically that you have your eyes on that might be towards improving?
That would be a Tom. He has a list of projects, so all I said was allow the town to be able to complete some of the projects on the list, their to-do list. Yeah. I think so, yeah. So, but Tom Barnes doesn't. I have no idea. I think I still have these parts of these presentations. Capturing whatever the process of surface water, commercial water.
Are those tap fees about, like $40,000 loan, or is that pretty, I guess that's a tough question to ask.
You just call the HBA. Association.
Yeah, they should be around one more than hour, tries you.
HBA would know averages in the Springs and other places. They keep track of that kind of stuff. Cost of business, custom build. That one here. I'm gonna put 400, 390 more homes on the system.
Well, that's just the question. Unless you have anything to add in terms of the development.
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. All right. All right, no worries. Thanks so much.
Take the check that you want people to to you guys, I can hit them over the head and go, you gotta do this. You know, I'm told you guys have to do this, cause I can't, but you guys can. You know, you can give advice, but you can't tell them what they really need to do. But I can have a more direct suggestion to them, so I know. Yes, yes, I did. I can be the voice that you can't. Yeah. Yeah, say, why do this, or, you know, you really need to do it this way, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, and they still may decide to, you know, take a hard ride on it, but at least we felt confident that they have all the information they need. I think in this case, they figured, I think they do more than what they really do. And so it's kind of a bit up to the button.
I also sent in a survey of, we're doing sidewalks on 105. And I sent him a survey showing where his property line is on 105. Right to the front parking lot. So, I think, right now our plans don't show that open as a driveway on 105. Since they have to be approved by CDOT, I suspect that's the way it's gonna be.
I don't think people should be coming and going on 105, they should be coming and going on Third Street. But really the only time they used to was there was out behind this building, some trucks were pulling in there, parked trucks. And then they're backing out onto 105, and that's not smart. Not at all.
So I think their dimensions are small enough that it's kind of like looking at Lake View. I mean, you can't go into that area and you can't get out. It's not, it doesn't make sense. I'm going with the federal permit. They're supposed to, I just feel like it's. Yeah.
And change your distribution boundaries. That's the only reason why they're moving, is to increase, but I don't know, I really don't know. I just know about labels and stuff, that everything is kind of legalized. They should already have a distillery license. They already do it.
I think she's gonna bury it in the ground.
You would have thought they started that one. And because they've already done it, they should know how long that takes.
Yeah.
No one was working on those, but by now I've heard they've. across, here, the back of the bed, and the other bathrooms were right there. I couldn't find it. I know it's hard to actually, that's my gut feeling, one of his tenants told me he's thinking about selling, so to me, he said, that's like a copy of his, he would sell it. I don't know, we're gonna ask him, I don't know, answer. And then,
Mike was gonna talk to him about.
yes, so, actually, she loves so much, that would make him, make that the best thing for him to sell. Because we want somebody on that lot, in fact, really on that lot. It's just stupid, build it up, kind of, but he bought it to protect what was his, he originally said, because he bought half his house. So, yeah, I know, we talked about that, and, you know, John has always said, half his business is counts, and there's no records that support that, so it's almost like.
He has been paid, just this year, which is last year for property tax. That's not mine. So he's been paying property tax for a while. No, it's all one parcel.
Well, then if he's paying that, then he needs to be paying sales tax.
It's kind of like lunch.
Yeah. Just like I said, I hope he just. Unfortunately, though, well, as long as the same business is staying there, hopefully things will be okay. It's gonna be a bigger problem.
How does he explain to himself on this corner of the sidewalk? Because he's like, he's not getting your benefit out of it.
Oh, and you can play on roads, better than other roads.
How old is he?
John? Very fit Saudis, but he gets out there and shovels snow and does everything else, but he's up there late sixties or seventies. Good kids. How was yours, a 4S? Was that a 4 or a 4S? It was a 5? See, I had a 4 that size, I think it's that size so much. But I just couldn't, it wouldn't support it anymore, and I kept having too many problems with it, I had to get rid of it.
Evidently, this one, you have to get a 6 or about to go into 5G. So last one was about 6. I used 4. And but I just have to take more time to buy it, send it in there, and download everything. What, transfer everything?
I thought every ounce of technology, I had a phone in my truck. And I had a phone hardwired into it. And I remember thinking, anyone ever need a phone? It just happened to come with it. And then I wasn't gonna turn it on, but I couldn't take it out because it'd leave a hole in the carpet without copying the whole thing. And then I went, oh, it was really cheap. So if I'm running late, someone will call me. Those big ones, yeah. And I thought, well, if I'm running late, or maybe I need directions somewhere, I'll use it. And it's really good for wire, for microphone off of the visor, so you really never have to hold it. You can do everything keyboard. And so I just use it once in a while. But then the phone company was trying to get you away from analog. And so it turns out that going to a handheld cell phone, half the price of an analog truck. And I was mad when they forced me, and again, I'm gonna need to carry a phone with them wherever they go. I don't get it. And now I can't live without my computer.
Exactly.
Every step along the way, this is ridiculous. No one should do these things to me. And then I become dependent.
Doesn't have a recharger portable, doesn't carry the things. She calls me on numbers, and goes, it's her phone. Like you realize the situation.
That was crazy when I get low on juice.
Yeah, he weighs one weird where I
It's okay. It's still, even though 6S is one of the ones that they said they were purposely making slower some of the upgrades. Mine apparently is not one of them. And I think that was just, say I have AT&T for a few years of service, but it was a combination of AT&T and phones and batteries and issues on purpose. They were doing it on purpose. And then they got hot. And then they stopped. So far, okay, but there's other than that.
Yeah, mine right now, you know, on your message thing, a little tape it and then it says messages. Mine won't have my Apple.
You have to go in and check to see.
Check. Doesn't give me that number.
Right.
And I don't think I have their latest iOS system at all.
I wouldn't even think they would download to a private. And that's the point, is that you get to a certain age and how much you want. So you're just using it until it's us, basically. I had one of the original iPads and I finally put it down. Well, that's my kickback. I really am not. I might go through that amount of emails. I'm in the slow down mode. I'm trying to use these by They don't look good. Yes, there's less spacing. Did the Avalanche lose? They off by
It's, 2-2.
So I was hoping that they lost.
No, it's 3-2. So Sharks win tonight, the Avalanche wins.
First thing about the Sharks are their colors. I love their team logo. Teal and white.
right is right. It's right, man. You call a spade a spade. It's done.
Yeah.
There's been a piece of artwork rotating every year.
I'm gonna request that one per week.
So do we have the appropriate recordings going?
I'm trying to get this one going, but it doesn't want to. So that one's going.
Running dead on batteries.
Well, I just replaced it, but it doesn't start.
Okay, we are back in open session and moving on. Item number 8, ordinance number 032019, an ordinance approving annexation of the property known as Willow Springs number 1. Mr. Manning.
Thanks, sir. We have 3 ordinances related to this. You'll see the other 2 below. That's what I'll try to explain as we go through this in terms of why that's the case. So we'll start first with what we have here tonight. Last name. There we go. It's an annexation, and along with annexations, you have an annexation of agreement, which spells out responsibilities of both the town and the person being annexed. Also, at that time, because we're going to zone it, plan development zoning that they've requested, there's also a PD sketch plan that comes along with it. So there's the location. It's north of Forest Lakes Drive, which is the westerly extension of Baptist, south of the Cincinnati complex, and west of the railroad, which is west of Old Denver. It's about 200 acres, 219 to be exact, and it'll be annexed in sequential annexations, and that's why there's 2 ordinances on that. So this shows the first annexation, which is Willow Springs 1, and the yellow is what illustrates contiguity, one of the requirements to be able to annex 1/6 of the border, must be contiguous with the property. And then the bottom one, once that's annexed, the bottom one becomes eligible by the dashed line, which is the 1/6 contiguity for that parcel itself. So the proposed zoning is plan development, and they do have a sketch plan. The sketch plan indicates range densities from 3 to 10, single-family units per acre,
After sketch plan approval, there's more to be looking at. There'll be a preliminary site plan and a final site plan in the PD zone. So this sets out the basic parameters of this development in terms of circulation and density, and the specifics will be dealt with when each phase comes in. Here is the plan itself. The various colors show the different density areas. The green is a large open space area, pretty much defined by the floodplain as well as the habitat of the jumping mouse. So the streets, there'll be one main street going down the middle of the property, and that will be an extension of Mitchell or Cynthia's, but definitely connect to an existing street in the town, and add a second access to get out of that part of town, which is Lake of the Rockies, which is getting pretty well built out. Some of the older residential areas, as well as anybody that might be making deliveries to the Cynthia's complex, they might be able to use this rather than Second Street, which is, of course, our downtown. So inside of the development, that one spine road will then service the various lots inside by loop roads or single roads that spine off of it like ribs. So the benefit that we see with this one is reduction of congestion on Second Street in downtown. The collector road will require a bridge. I want to mention that. I'll have an illustration of that in a little bit. That will go over Monument Creek. This is diagrammatic, I-25 on the right, the railroad, and then the dash line is this future connection, which you can see that provides the only southern route to go east on Baptist Road, whereas now you're going to Second Street only to get east out of that part of the town. This is about the location of the bridge. So the road will come down from Cynthia's or Mitchell and get to this location and have to have a bridge to get over Monument Creek, excuse me. Here's one probable, at least the one we're contemplating now, route down to Cynthia's Ave to the east and then south down to the spine road that continues through the development. Sewer service will be provided by Monument Sanitation. There may be lift stations, depending on how this relates to a new concept, which is the Northern Monument Creek Interceptor. But in any case, we do have a well-served letter from the district that they will grant sewer service to this development. Water will be by the town of Monument. There's an existing main at the end of Cynthia's. It will go to the south and find its way over to someplace, probably Old Denver Road, where it can be looped. So we have two sources of water, very desirable. Water rights will be deeded to the town. A water development fee and tap fees will also be assessed. This is the comprehensive plan that designates the area to be annexed, and it also shows a very similar density of residential units in this area, including open space. This is the plan again. Okay, so the development agreement, specific to streets, they'll all be built, paid for by the developer to town standards. The main route is to be a minor residential collector, 50 feet wide, 50 foot wide, 60 foot wide, by the way, excuse me. No lots will front onto that particular street. The others will be local streets that will circle through the development and return to that spine, my collector. Bridge will be built across Monument Creek, paid for by the developer. The town will contribute traffic impact fees. This is what's currently in our annexation agreement to the construction of that bridge based on what we perceive as the benefits to the relief of that part of town having a second access point. The bridge construction will be required when the intersection at Mitchell and Second Street reaches a level of service E, or when wait times are about 35 seconds. So we anticipate the southern development of this below the bridge to develop first. As the northern part develops and that kind of congestion occurs at that intersection,
they will have to build a bridge before they build more homes. This is another diagram showing some of the uses that will utilize this southern route, including traffic to the lake, like the Rockies and older residential subdivisions, as well as cities itself. The water system will be installed and paid for by the developer, dedicated to the town. The water main at the end of Cincy's will be extended and again looped into our system in some other location. The town is currently committed to 335 homes to serve with the water and expects to have the capacity for the balance of the homes by the time they're under construction. A water development fee of $531,000 and tap fees as well, that again will be collected at the time of building permit. The water rights again will be deeded to the town. Park and school dedications. 5.6 acres of land is required to be dedicated by our ordinance. There is no plan to have publicly maintained parks. There are some private ones. Therefore, the current agreement states, as the ordinance allows, 50% of those fees to be offset in lieu of the land that's going to be left in open space. That leaves a park fee for each unit of $559. 6.2 acres of land is required by the school district. Similar situation in that they are dedicating 5 acres, not a part of this annexation, to the school district, adjacent to another parcel that they own down on Forest Lakes. And the balance of their fees based on that will be $239 per home. So the Board of Trustees has previously passed a resolution that makes this designates it as eligible annexation under state law. Annexation agreement has been drafted, as I've discussed a few key points of, and the annexation zoning and sketch plan are in accordance with the comprehensive plan. Plan Commission recommends approval of the request. Any questions at this time?
Could you go back like 4 slides? I just had a really simple question when it was on the bridge and the amount of time, but I want to quote it correctly. Keep going.
With text over the graphic.
Keep going. Keep going. One more. That's it. So the construction, the 35, how was that determined? Where'd that come from?
You're talking about.
I'm looking at number 5. Service of E or when wait times exceed 35. How would? Please
Well,
explain that to me.
This, as well as many of those items in the agreement, are a matter of negotiation at this time between staff and the developer. And so it's our anticipation that that development, when it starts in the north, if not already, that intersection is close to, if not at, E. So level of service E is what stated, which is about 35 seconds a wait. So gets longer than that, gets to be a minute, it's a real problem for.
So how was this I'm sorry.
Traffic report.
And this is not this is us. How was that determined? Where did that come from?
Negotiations between staff and a developer as to when it would occur. Noting that anything over 35 seconds is really uncomfortable and undesirable to move traffic through town.
I think maybe, I could be wrong, but what he might be asking is the level service E some type of a standard and some type of a manual somewhere that, is that what you were?
Yes.
Okay.
It's standard ABCDEF.
Oh, okay. So there's standards of that in traffic. Okay.
Correct. That's where I got the 35.
Which comes from traffic studies or engineering? I'm just trying to understand where the baseline is. I'm not challenging the number, I just don't understand where it came from.
When they come in for each final site plan, they will produce a traffic study, and it will address that intersection.
Okay.
And then it will be sent out to our reviewing consultants to see if they accept that logic. And as soon as it reaches E, either by their presentation or our reviewing consultants' conclusions, then they build a bridge or don't get another building permit.
Okay, no, you answered my question. I would assume that'd be an independent, because I know in the past we've done traffic studies, that, I mean, we had this at Lake of the Rockies, it was done umpteen years ago, and they just said, well, we're gonna, so this will be an updated traffic study, because if the traffic isn't backed up, we don't need the bridge, when it gets backed up, we need the bridge, so I'm not saying either way.
That's a simple way to explain it, yes. When it gets too bad at that intersection, then no more houses or no houses will go on the north end until they can have an alternative to the south by constructing a bridge.
And then the second question, so we'll contribute traffic impact fees, the town will. So can you just explain that to me, that number?
The traffic impact fees are collected for purposes of extending roads within the town. And of course, primarily over this part of town, because Triview on their side of town collects their own. So the negotiations again between staff and the applicant suggested that if we're gonna collect these fees with the benefits to Second Street, leaving that traffic, and for those residents to be able to go south to Baptist, was a benefit to the town, the impact fees.
So the question is, if the bridge is $2 million, what percentage are we contributing?
If it's well, it's not a percentage, it's up to a certain amount.
So what's the maximum amount that the town is?
I think you multiply that by the units, you come up with about 250,000. The bridge is currently estimated, from what I'm aware of, is over 2 million, it might be 3.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Does the applicant have anything to add to your, or their
They
presentation?
have a presentation as well.
Okay.
Wait till Laura gets that letter.
Was this presentation emailed to me?
What?
Was this presentation emailed to me?
I sent with those 8 items.
All right.
I think I saw it in the packet when I just reviewed it a little while ago.
Okay, if you give me a minute, sorry about that.
Should start with Monument Creek Ranch.
Would you mind just coming up here, let me take a look real quick?
I have one hard copy, but I don't know if you have a means of projecting that.
I think we found it.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
It is a touch screen, but.
All right, sorry about that.
Good evening, I'm John Maynard with NES Land Planning Firm, representing Monument Creek Ranch today. This is, I'm going to shorten my presentation a little bit because Larry has covered a lot of the points that I was going to make. I'm going to emphasize a few of those. This is what I call a context map. It shows the property in relationship to the street system. Again, the southern boundary is generally Baptist Road and then Forest Lakes Drive. The eastern boundary is generally the railroad tracks. The northern boundary is generally the industrial land Synthos property shown on this map. This map shows the portion of the town's comprehensive plan indicating future proposed land use. The red line shows where the property is located and the colors are land use. And again, this was anticipated by the comprehensive plan to be annexed into the town and developed in much the same way as we're proposing this evening. I have 3 slides here that are the 3 sheets of the sketch plan that has been submitted and reviewed by staff. This is the cover sheet. I'm not going to say much about it. I'm going to go into details afterward, but it has the typical requirements of a cover sheet, data, legal description, vicinity map, and other data. This is the sketch plan map that Larry has alluded to. I don't know the best way to point. I have a pointer here, and if I point to the back here,
Yeah, it won't show on the screen.
it'll show on the screen, okay? Do you mind if I go to the back and use a hand pointer to point? Would that be helpful? Again, in terms of transportation, Baptist Road is here, transition to Forest Lakes Drive, which is along the western boundary. Eastern boundary here is the railroad tracks, and up here the boundary is the Synthesis property generally. The access to the site, it will be in the, in these arrows indicate access points along Forest Lakes Drive and Baptist Road. I point out this triangular piece of land here was provided to El Paso County to build the connection of Baptist to Forest Lakes Drive, which is obviously completed. The other major transportation system, as alluded to, is the minor collector, which would go through the middle of the property, crossing Monument Creek in this location and intersecting Baptist Road down here where there's a, you can see, physically see the curb cut that was provided to the county construction in this location. So that's the circulation system for this property. The land uses, and you can see the land, largest land use on this property is green, and that's open space. It's almost half of the property. When you add in the open space and the 3 park properties, which are these darker green areas, it's more than half the property. The lowest density is shown in this color, light yellow. 2 estate lots planned here. There's an estate lot here that used to be a part of this particular development, and these 2 lots are compatible with that. These lots are in excess of 5 acres in size. The next land use category, this yellow, is where most of the density will be incorporated, and that's the density of 3 to 5 units per acre, traditional single-family development parcels. The next color, this orangish color here, is again townhouse or patio home type of density at 8 to 12 units per acre, and parcels in that category. While I'm up here, I'm going to talk about school site, which is a little bit out of order. This was originally part of our original annexation application, but during the review period, we had significant discussions with the school district. They and their architect looked at 3 different sites for a future school site, one of which was down in this location, one of which was up in this location, and of course this one, which would be in addition to the existing 10-acre site that they have in the Forest Lakes. They did layouts on all 3 of these sites. This became the preferred location, and we have a memorandum of understanding with the school district that we will dedicate this 5 acres to them should the remainder of the project go forward. This 5 acres allows them to combine with this property. You can see there's Mitchell Road right-of-way at one point. Mitchell Road comes through here. Mitchell Road right-of-way would be vacated. The school district has had discussions with the county about vacation of that right-of-way. They haven't finalized the application at this point in time, pending the annexation of this property. So that's the school situation, and I'll describe it while I'm here, but I'll show you more detail at another slide. The next slide is the third slide, this third page within the sketch plan. This is our phasing plan. If you look along, if you need me to go to the back, I will, but I'll try to do it without going back there. The first 2 phases are along Forest Lakes Drive. They're in the green and the tan colors. And subsequent to that, the 3rd phase, which is probably the one that you're going to be most interested in, is the pink land, pink parcel in the upper right-hand corner of the sketch plan. Included in that pink parcel is the extension of the minor collector to the south to connect with Baptist Road. So our anticipation is that sometime during the development of the property in the northeast corner, which is the first piece on the north side of Monument Creek and the first piece that's not accessed directly to Baptist Road, would require the development of that collector road at some point in time. And again, that's dependent on the parameters that are in the annexation agreement. After that phase, generally the land on the north would be developed next. Midway through the sequence is the pink land that's adjacent to the school site. This is a summary of the land use table, which is on the cover page of the sketch plan. Again, there are 219 acres. If you add the 104 acres of open space and the 8 acres of parkland, you have more than half of the land in either parks or open space. The 16 acres represents 2 estate lots. The next category, the 3 to 5 units per acre, 65 acres, and you can see the unit count. And then the attached residential patio home types product, 6 to 10 units per acre and 19 acres of that. I show this slide for a couple reasons. This is the approved PUD zoning drawing for the project that went through the process in El Paso County. So this is what's currently on the books in El Paso County. You can see that the land use is relatively the same. The transportation system is not. Make one comment about the land use. There's approximately 100 more units on this plan than the one that we propose in the town. The transportation under this plan anticipated that Mitchell Road would connect through property that's not owned by this applicant and is owned by a elderly lady. Can't remember, Georgia Ward, I believe her name is. At any rate, the change obviously is to put a collector street system that can actually be developed and with a creek crossing that can be made through the property, and that's what our annexation and sketch plan show. I'm not going to read these. These are the policies that show conformance with the town's comprehensive plan in addition to the map. I am going to talk about this just a little bit. Again, this is the detail of the school site location, the 5 acres that would be dedicated to District 38. It's not included in the annexation because water and sewer would have been split between town and whoever serves Forest Lakes Metro District, I assume. And the school district asked that they have a uniform water and sewer package on their school site, so we deleted that 5 acres from the annexation at the request of the school district, essentially. You can see the access arrow that we show into their site. They requested that as well. Again, I think you have a letter in your packet of recommendation for approval by School District 38. Most of these points in the annexation agreement, Larry has already spoken to. I'm going to go over them really quickly. I can't read them that far away, to tell you the truth, lies. The annexor in this case, and that's the applicant, needs water to the town, builds water lines, pays the water development fee, which is over $500,000. And has been noted, this town currently has water that could serve 335 units. Service beyond that depends on the town's ability to serve. So at such point in time that 335 units are built and the town doesn't have water to serve, you don't issue building permits or approve final plats on that. So you have control over that situation. It is anticipated by the time that we get that far in the development process that the town will have enough water to service those last lots. The next topic I want to go over again is this crossing. As you know, the annexor builds the collector road, builds the bridge across Monument Creek. The collector is required when Mitchell and Second reach level service E, which with each of our development plans and plats, we will be required to submit a traffic study that evaluates not only the trip generation from this particular development, but also the impacts on particular intersections of interest to the town, particularly Second and Mitchell. Traffic impact fees are paid at building permit. Once the bridge is constructed, the collector is constructed, the town accepts those for maintenance, then the impact fees that have been collected are returned to the developer and no more impact fees are required. The total of the impact fees is approximately 10% of the cost of the bridge. So it's incentive for us to provide this service. The bridge obviously and the road system obviously benefit the town, but they also benefit the developer. That's the end of my presentation. I'd like to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Lytle while he's still here? Okay. This is a public hearing item. At this time, if there is anyone who would like to speak for this annexation, please step forward. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this ordinance and bring it back to the board for any further comments or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 3, 2019, an ordinance approving annexation of property known as Willow Springs number 1.
Second?
I have a motion, a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
No.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 6-1. Next item on the agenda, ordinance number 042019, an ordinance approving annexation of property known as Willow Springs number 2. Mr. Manning.
As I showed you before, these are sequential. So this is the southern half. What you just dealt with was the northern half. I don't have anything to add to my previous presentation.
Thank you.
Did the applicant have anything additional to add to this
No, sir.
portion? This is a public hearing item also. Would anybody like to speak for this item? Seeing none, would anybody like to speak against this item? I will close the public hearing portion of this and bring it back to the board for further questions or motion.
Motion to pass ordinance number 04-2019, an ordinance approving annexation of property known as Willow Springs number 2.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
No.
That motion passes 6-1. Ordinance number 052019, an ordinance approving the zoning of property known as Willow Springs number 1 and Willow Springs number 2. Mr. Manning.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it's subject to zone plan development. So this ordinance does that and also adopts the sketch plan.
Which we've already seen,
Pardon?
which was already included.
Yes.
Does the applicant have anything to add to this portion? This is a public hearing item. Would anybody like to speak for this item? Seeing none, would anybody like to speak against this item? I will close the public hearing portion of this and bring it back to the board for further comment, questions, or a motion.
Motion for ordinance number 05-2019, an ordinance approving zoning of property known as Willow Springs number 1 and Willow Springs number 2.
Second?
I have a motion, a second, Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
No.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
That motion passes 6 to 1. Moving on. Item number 8N, ordinance number 17-2019, an ordinance amending the qualifications for candidates for and members of the Town Board of Trustees. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may ask the town clerk to display the item that I sent to you, I believe yesterday, and maybe it was this morning. The language of 2.04.020 A and C that had the strike through. Yes. Perfect. This is actually the result of a request from Trustee Clark as well. As of March 18th at the board meeting, Trustee Clark, in addition to requesting clarification regarding the removal of trustees by action of other trustees, asked me to research the qualification as to trustees regarding litigation against the town, which I've referred to as the town's litigation prohibition. This is in many ways the exact mirror opposite of the removal process, whereby the removal process was supported by a state statute on point very clearly. This litigation prohibition lacked any such support. And as a statutory town, the town's powers are limited by statute, and there has to be a direct link in terms of express statute identifying the power and or be an ancillary power, which basically means a power effectuating an expressed power. And since there is, I found none, my suggestion to the board would be to repeal that language. As expressed in the memo, there are really only two qualifications for electors, and that is being 18 years of age and having resided in the town for the previous 12 months. This would be a third requirement, and it's not supported by statute. And then there's also some case law that rounds this out, and the case law suggested, and provided some wiggle room, but the case law suggested that perhaps a town could add another requirement if that requirement was reasonably related to a duty or benefit to the elector or the town, the board of trustee member, i.e. it helped them be a better board of trustee member. And I'm not sure that we can make an argument that prohibiting litigation against the town provides such a benefit.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Rivera from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So your finding was primarily in regards to being a candidate?
No, it was both to be a candidate and being an elected member. So if you look at the my eyes are not as good as they used to be, but one of them refers to candidates and one of them refers to electors, and my finding was for both. So how the statute is written is that actually it refers to, the statute defines electors, which is essentially voters, and then every voter can be a candidate or an actual elected board of trustee member. So that's how it's expressed. It's expressed in the lowest common denominator of electors. And so we can't make any provisions or any requirements on electors besides the two that are supported by statute.
Another question I had was my concern about privilege. A person being party to, we learned last meeting that we had that you cannot recuse yourself, or you don't have to recuse yourself unless you have a financial interest.
Mm-hmm.
So if the lawsuit was related to obviously punitive damages or whatever, then that would be a financial interest. But if there were no financial interests in the lawsuit, then the party to the plaintiff would be also the party to the defendant. And is there any concern or things related to that?
I think that would depend on the unique circumstances of the facts as presented when they're presented. But my initial reaction would be that a board of trustee member, while not precluded from being a board of trustee member because they have brought litigation against the town, would not be able to participate in any executive session regarding the town's response to that litigation. So they wouldn't be able to kind of hear the town as a corporate body's response to the litigation they initiated against the town.
Right, that's my concern,
Yeah.
is that that would be, to me, a violation of privilege, because they're then able to hear the decision and even participate in the decision, then go to the plaintiff attorney and discuss what was, discussed there.
And there's not a lot of case law that rounds that out, but I suspect that there's a tradition of privilege, and it just doesn't make sense to do it any other way, is I guess my answer at this point. Hopefully we won't be presented with that circumstance, but that would be my position, that's my position at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I would like to make a motion concerning that.
This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone that would like to speak for this item? Anyone that would like to speak against it? I will close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the board for further comment. Trustee Clerk?
I would like to make a motion concerning that, discussion that, we move that the monument ordinance 2.04.020 section C language currently in place forbidding elected officials from litigating against the town of Monument be removed or stricken from the body of this and any other monument ordinance as null and void because of its direct conflict with state law.
We do not have that as the ordinance, the way it's listed as we're discussing. So are we approving the ordinance that we're discussing?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to approve ordinance number 172019, an ordinance amending the qualifications for candidates for and members of the Town of Board of Trustees. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Koopman,
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Item 9, public comments. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to make public comments?
And how? In regards to the park benches that are being proposed, I'd like to understand why an RFP hasn't been let for that type of work. We seem to be giving privilege to Jody Bliss and Bliss Studios. No one else got the opportunity to put in a bid for this work. Not to say that it would come in cheaper, better, or whatever, but in the spirit of fairness and transparency, if we're gonna start doing this, we should allow anyone in the town to compete for this in an open forum. I don't see that happening on a lot of work that's being done in the town. It's not giving local businesses a chance to bid on work that's been done by incumbents. And I think it would be good for the town's economy, for the morale, and just for the town in general, to be able to put out an RFP and let people compete fairly for it, instead of just handing it over to a favored son or daughter. Thank you.
Is there any other public comments? Sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees. My name is Greg Dingrado, and I'm the Chief Public Information Officer for the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department. I come before you this evening for a couple of reasons. First, to welcome and congratulate Mr. Mike Foreman to his new position here. We look forward to working with you as well as the Board of Trustees on future building and development projects that you have going on in this area. The second reason is to invite you all, as well as your constituents, to our regional building open house coming up in a couple of weeks. I have a number of flyers to give all of you, but I just kind of wanted to give you a rundown of kind of some of the things that we'll be going over. Again, the open house will be happening on May 16th and 17th, and that's happening over at our building, regional building, just east of the Velodrome and Memorial Park. Basically, this will be our second one. We made some changes this year. We're kind of separating things out into one day specifically for homeowners and one day specifically for contractors. The whole idea was to kind of tailor some of the classes that we will be offering on those days to kind of make it a little bit easier for the contractors to come and knock out a number of classes they can all in one day. With that said, people are able to go to either day. They can attend all 8 classes, or they can attend one class, whichever best suits them. All classes are free. We'll actually also be offering lunch to folks that come out, and we encourage everybody to attend if they're interested. A couple of the classes that we'll be offering, residential plan review, homeowner Q&A class, so basically just any and all questions will be welcome at that time. One specific new class that we'll be offering this year might be of extra interest to the homeowner is a scam alert class, and this is particularly of interest because we've had so much hail damage this year, and a lot of people have been having to get work done kind of in a hurry, so we'll be going over a lot of the red flags with that. And if you have come across any issues, we'll try to help people out the proper avenues to go in order to get that fixed. If you have any questions, I'd certainly be happy to try to answer them. And I have flyers for all of you guys.
Thank you. Item 10, board authorization items. Monthly town manager report. Mr. Foreman?
Just had a question for the board. In my previous contract as interim, it was required that I do a town report every other week, and was wanting to know if the board would want to just have that report once a month versus every other week.
I love the every other week.
I don't know that it's even changed that much, or are you scrounging for items?
Staff is scrounging for items when it's every other, when it's every board meeting, they are struggling to change it and make it updated. So I think for staff and for us, it's easier to do a once a month.
I'm okay with once a month.
I am as well.
Yeah, me too.
Trustee Friedman, Bornstein?
Oh, no, yeah, the reports are not to create work. So if there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
Once a month it is.
All right, thank you very much.
Do you have anything additional to add to this town manager report?
I don't at this time, but be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Does the board have any questions in regards to the town manager report? Okay.
But if something urgent should come up or concerning.
Oh, yes, we'll definitely bring it to attention.
Board of Trustee comments.
I've got just a couple of really minor, and one should have been under the board authorization, just to ask Tom, will you be coming to us at the next meeting regarding your water rates?
That's the plan. We originally scheduled for now, but given that the agenda looked like it was gonna go.
No worries, I just want to make sure we didn't forget, because I know that was odd.
No, I'm just.
Tom has been working on that daily.
Yeah, so it's, I know that's hot on your topic, so I'll make sure it just doesn't slide by, that's all.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to welcome the town manager again. I think he's doing an excellent job. I think we made a good decision. I just want to welcome our new commander. This is your first day. Congratulations. I'm really glad we got one of the media people here, because I'm gonna say this. I think 7 years I've been on the board, and I think the board is playing nicely together. And I think we're getting some good things done. And I think there's some great things going on in the town. But when I read the media, not necessarily your document, but it seems that we're only seeing the negatives. just down in the Springs, and I'm hearing negatives, I'm going, the positives far exceed. There's always gonna be some things going on, but, you know, I think we all need to get out there and maybe go outside and find the media relationships to get the word out. Because there's good stuff going on up here. And, you know, we've gone through some hiccups in the last couple of years, but we're not getting good PR for all the good stuff. So, just an observation, and I thank the board for, it's fun to come to the meetings. So, that's all I've got today, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Kind of a comment, kind of an authorization item. I would like to see a future agenda item to discuss and get information on the possibility of an emergency interconnect with Triview, now that they're on the west side of the interstate. October of 2016, every water expert that we had came and delivered a presentation to the board at that time, highlighting the importance of an emergency interconnect, highlighting the fact that we remain a standalone water entity as we continue to add these developments, with the fact that the water is now literally right there.
Right.
We need to look at that, because I would imagine the cost is greatly different than what it would have been to connect to Triview in October 2016. So I'd like to see that.
Tom, that's part of our CSU plan also, is when we're gonna bring that water line from them to us, there's an opportunity for us to do an emergency interconnect.
Well, and part of the Interceptor project?
Yes.
And understanding how long that's gonna be before that actually comes to fruition, I'm talking something quicker than that, is what I'd like to see. I mean, we're talking years versus something that could be needed much sooner.
So maybe this is something that we get on the agenda for our next meeting for a discussion topic, which is definitely worth discussing, because I think Tom can share with us what the strategy and the vision, and it might be part of it.
Or maybe the following meeting?
Yeah, you might wanna give him a little time to put this together.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like it to be information, so I mean, numbers as far as what it
Yeah,
would
can you give
cost.
us a month on that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
let's do that.
I just don't want it to be another, you know,
Right, yeah, we can do
2.5
that.
years.
Yeah, we can do that in a month, yeah. Good.
Any other board comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Quick comment before you adjourn. Just, give you a heads up, tomorrow night, I believe it's 6 o'clock, the intersection of, Second and Jefferson is gonna be shut down to replace a leaking valve. And we scheduled that in the evening because it's gonna require, about 2 blocks worth of businesses and residents to be out of service. So we would have done it tonight, it was scheduled for tonight, but the school board had a meeting tonight. And we would have took out service to their admin. So that's rescheduled for tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Crews and our guys will be out there, I would imagine, at least till early morning hours. Trying to get that out. So there'll be detours set up, and we'll find out what it'll run. We're sorry to give you a heads up.
Thank you.
Now motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Emergency interconnect. Open house, my card. Hey, thank you, sir. Glad to meet you. I've been wanting to come over there. I came over there for a meeting, probably a month ago. We had a.
We want to talk